There we go. David Ellefson joining us. Man, I wish we were talking on a little better terms. We got a couple projects you're working on from Fallen Comrades. But I first let's talk about the Lucid first. We'll start off.
Start on an upbeat.
Start on that first. I'm really excited about this. I was never a huge 90s alternative guy, but I really loved Sponge.
Right. I'm totally there with you. I'm 100%.
And you're teaming up with Vinny in this band. So let's talk about that first of all.
Well, it's kind of like how Alice in Chains was sort of the cool band from Seattle, that all the metal and hard rockers, like, okay, they get the hall pass. They're cool, right? And Soundgarden too, but for sure, Alice in Chains, because they got the heavy cred, right? And I agreed. Same with Sponge. Sponge was a band that when it was coming out of Seattle into the kind of mid to late 90s, and we're not talking new metal because that would have been Korn, Cold Chamber, Limp Bizkits, that stuff. Not that genre, but like you say, the alternative genre, which would have been Meat Puppets, Creed, like just a ton of them, more than I can remember right now. But yeah, you're right. Sponge was the one, and because Plowed, I mean, that video and the song,
so
great.
Good.
Yeah, super, super good. So, that's why I was thrilled to work with him. And when Drew brought it up to me, he said, "Hey, man, I think Vinny's going to join in with us on this." Like, dude, now we're talking, because all these things start with an idea and then a song and then a couple of people, and it's it's different now, because back when I lived around the area there in Minnesota, you just grab whoever you can, whoever can play, they're good. You just try to put something together, right?
You can get four guys. I grew up there too in North Dakota. It's just like, you play? Okay, you're in.
Yeah. So if I think, late now, here we are, fast forward 30, 40 years, let's face it, right? 40, 45 years probably since, all that. But since I live back in the area, it's been, coming up on 40 years. But now it's different, because the friends you call to be involved in things are, they're also famous, and they've also had careers, and they've done things. And you reach to people who have a similar experience level, and it's like, I know I can call Vinny, and he knows how to get in the room and make the magic happen. He's done it. He's been produced, he's managed, he's signed contracts, and he's been through that process. So after a while, you don't want to sort of go backwards and deal with having to bring people up the ranks to teach them that, because it's a whole thing. So, by nature, any group I'm going to be playing in is probably going to have, other guys that have some pedigree. And then naturally people go, "Oh, it's a super group." No, it's not a super group. It just, we all happen to be known for having had success in the past, So that's how all these things are, whether it's Metal Allegiance, what we're doing at the Lucid, whatever. It's like, all my friends, they're famous. I mean, we're brothers and sisters in the same neighborhood here now,
So how is the music turning out? You got kind of a unique mix there. How would you describe the band?
It's pretty hard to describe it. I think that's a beautiful thing. I mean, how often is it that because I've made some records, what is it? Oh, it's full on thrash metal, or it's power metal, or it's, you can kind of define it. And of course, fans get excited because they know us for the things we've done in our past. So they get excited to hear more of that. But when the Lucid comes out, we didn't put a name on it. We didn't put a title. We didn't put a sort of a genre around it, because honestly, it's pretty hard to nail down. I mean, it's got a lot of variety to it. And the beauty of it is fans have responded very well to it. And kind of to your opening comment about 90s, kind of the 90s music, I think a lot of people were happy to hear me go back and do that, because for a large, for so many years, especially in Megadeth, people were like, "Oh, dude, fucking rest in peace and peace out. Just do that." Right. So then, I don't know, I feel like the band spent the last 20 years trying to just go back and do that, just that one, this one style. And it's just, you evolve. And I mean, the 90s were a big explosive evolution of my career, the Megadeth sound, everyone that was in the group during that era. And, we ran alongside guys like Sponge. I mean, I remember fighting for top chart positions on radio with Sponge and Creed and, again, all these guys, Godsmack eventually, and all these guys that were coming up the ranks behind us, so, to me, I love the 90s. I like the Seattle sound. I thought Pearl Jam 10 was great. I love Nirvana Nevermind. I thought it was fucking great. I didn't even know they had a history before that. I just remember hearing that record on KNEC when I lived in LA, just going, this is freaking cool. It's punk rock. The tones are heavy. It's cool.
Yep.
And of course, Grohl is the favored son now.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy?
Well, he should be, as well as he should be. He works hard. He does a lot. He's passionate, and he just goes at it. And God bless him.
Yep.
But and then I remember we took Korn out with us in '95. It was on the Euthanasia tour,
right.
So we got to see the next thing coming up that would kind of like the Lucid. It was so bizarre. It's like you can't even put a title on this. What the hell is it? It's so weird.
Yeah.
And I remember our production manager at the time said he was British, and he goes, David, it's going to be the fall apart, it's going to change the world, and because it's so, and that's what it is. Great music is polarizing. People are either all in or they fucking hate it. And sometimes having a lot of enemies means there's probably the other half love you and will do everything that you freaking ever hang your hat on. And it's okay. We're not it obviously it is a popularity contest in the level that you want to try to sell as many records as you want, but it's not really. It's like, we're not here to make everybody happy. We do what we do, and
it's impossible to make everybody happy anymore. You just
waste of time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it totally is. So give us a little timeline on the band and what's happening with it. New material.
We do have new
maybe
material.
Touring. I don't know.
Yeah, we've got so the record came out in October. I forgive me for not knowing this. I should. I think it's the lucidofficial.com is the site. If you just look up the Lucid, it'll come up. So record came out in October. We started dropping some singles, kind of just before that. We shot some videos in December, so we pushed out Deaths of Despair, which we pushed that out in January. We've got another one coming out here pretty soon, actually. So we've got kind of a succession of a handful of videos we're going to drop. And we do have new music in the works right now.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really exciting. And now that you get the full length out, a band like the Lucid can just, we can do singles, EPs, we can do other things too. It's kind of like everything you drop just kind of keeps it. It's fun because it's something new, and it's funny. The new stuff that we're working on is very, again, like, oh my God, like I would have never done this with any other group of guys except these guys.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That's cool.
It's great. It's cool. Yeah. So we got tour dates in May kicking off. We got 5 dates we're gonna do. Obviously Sponge still works a lot. They're busy. Mike's and Raven and Fear Factory. So he's juggling schedules. Yeah. So we're always kind of throwing darts at the map in between those, what they're doing, to try to kind of fill in some more dates with everything.
Yeah. Cool. I was a huge Raven fan.
Oh yeah.
They were just insane. I mean, back in the day, they had probably an influence on Megadeth, I'm guessing. Somewhat.
It's funny getting to know the Gallagher brothers now. I went down and met with them. It was a couple years ago, and they're telling the story of how like a very young Def Leppard used to come and see them when they'd play in Sheffield before they were known. They'd come down and see them. That's how long these guys have been around. I mean, Raven has been around, since like the Motorhead days. That long. So it's like Lemmy and those guys. So the fact they're still out doing it is great. I jumped up and jammed their version, or their Seek and Destroy.
Oh my gosh.
Different than the Metallica one.
Yeah.
but it's funny. That's where I first saw him, was on that Kill 'Em All for One tour when Johnny Z, God rest his soul, he just passed this week.
Oh yeah.
When Johnny puts Raven and Metallica out on their All for One and Kill 'Em All records, and that was when I saw him at the that's the first time I saw Metallica. I just moved to LA, so it was kind of, I guess, was at the fall of 1983.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they
times.
were crazy, wacko, and everything. I mean, they were nuts, just fucking high energy. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Crazy guys. Well, let's move on to a couple other things you have going on. I want to start with the Nick Menza project. This was a tough one for me. I had interviewed Nick before, and he was a big influence on me as a drummer too. And I tell you what, such a nice guy, at least when I talked to him. Super funny. I have him, and I've used it several times. Nick doing an imitation of your mom when you got in Megadeth. He did. Right. The old Megadeth, here we go line. Who sounds exactly like my mom, by the way.
Especially being from Fargo. I remember when my mom came out here one time to visit my family, and she goes, "Oh, we should watch the movie Fargo." And she talks just like it, right?
I know,
probably like your mom.
Mine
so
too.
We're thinking, what the hell is this? So we start watching it, and then it's all that it is, right?
Oh yeah,
stumping the grinder at the end. They're like, "Mom, you're fucking sick and twisted," and we're laughing at her the whole time. We're going, "Oh my God, they talk just like you, Mom." And she goes, "Oh, they do not."
That's what mine said too. They don't sound anything like me. I call my mom, and she answers the phone. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, say
it's taken me forever to get rid of that to some degree. I had to move away from the state for years just to get rid of it. It comes back way too easy. But anyway, Nick was doing that. Just a super sweet guy. Can you tell us about the project a little bit?
Yeah, and thanks for asking about it. It's a labor of love, the whole thing. We're doing it basically to just try to raise money that the funds will then go to his family. He's got 2 young boys. And after he passed, his son Nicholas, he and I started talking quite a bit, and I had not met him before, but he told me that Nick was like, he wasn't even, obviously he was sad because his dad was gone, but the truth of it is he said he had come up to visit him. They live up in the Seattle area. Nick had come up there. He was literally like hugging a tree. They're out in the forest or something. He's hugging a tree. Like, he was just a real piece of it. It was like, the vibrations of the earth. And, and he was just, and he was always a real earthy kind of guy. He had fish in his apartment. He liked to cook. He was, he was an organic guy. The stuff he liked to smoke and all the way down. He was an organic guy.
Which is so ironic when you hear him play drums. He was a monster.
Fucking animal. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it just like that didn't fit, but
I remember we'd always go to Gelson's and he'd get his orange roughy. That was always his fish that he liked to cook. He was really into that. And being over at his parents' house a couple of weeks ago when we were filming, I was just sitting out there by the pool. We Nick would always have us come over. We'd hang out. His parents didn't care who came and went, which is just like my house in Minnesota. I mean, doors unlocked. Sorry, I gotta get me a vocal zone here.
Oh yeah, no problem.
But doors unlocked, keys in the cars. Come and go as you want. And that's one of the things I really liked about Nick, because I was getting sober at that time. This was 89, so I'm getting cleaned up off drugs and booze and that lifestyle where you don't want anyone coming in and out of your house. Right?
Not a good time.
No. So now all of a sudden I'm with Nick, hanging out with him, and at the time his girlfriend Stephanie, and it was just an open door policy. It was this apartment that he had, I think, like on Riverside and Colfax, I think is that right? The cross streets there in North Hollywood. And his mom and dad lived a few blocks away. It was just, it was just such a cool hang, and everybody was invited, everybody's welcomed. And that is the warmth of Nick. And people, when we were interviewing them for the film, everybody talked about how Nick, he didn't want to move. Like whenever we all relocated, me and David Marty relocated out here to Phoenix, to Scottsdale. around the euthanasia record, and Nick would not move. And it wasn't because he was trying to be defiant. He's, you know, in his Italian blood and all that he is, he was like, I'm not moving. Like, this is my home. This is where I grew up. I'm not moving. I travel around the world, then I come back home. And, you know, his dad is a very well-known jazz musician, Don
That's
Menza.
right. Yeah.
And he kind of the same thing. He traveled. He had his bands overseas.
Uh-huh.
He traveled. He played with Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson. I mean, first chair. I mean, top level, you know. And it's funny because when we're at the house filming, Don's upstairs in the upstairs room where he's always been. He goes upstairs and he listens to music and he practices. Still to this day, he's 80 some years old.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, that's the kind of musical discipline Nick grew up around. You know, music was allowed, it was welcomed, it obviously paid the bills. So Nick just grew up in a very loving, warm, and still just like that today. It's a very warm family, you know, and they're very inviting. So, you know, really appreciate them allowing this film to happen, because there have been a couple of, I think, ideas. I don't want to call them false starts, but a couple of intentions to get it going. And now it's finally going. It's moving, you know. So I'm glad to be invited in to just kind of get, you know, fire the gun, get it all across the starting line, and let's get the horses going, you know. So
is this with your production company? Ellefson Films is doing this, right?
Yeah, Holly is the Malahan, I think, if I'm saying her name right. She is the director and producer.
Okay.
I originally was gonna. They called me and said, you know, would you want to narrate it? I said, yeah, but I said, look, if I'm going to get involved, you know, I want to be all in. Otherwise, it's just sort of a session I do on the side. And quite honestly, the deeper I got into it, I quickly became the guy and the monkey in the middle to kind of bring all the parts and all the people together.
Gotcha.
And really make it all happen, you know, so that it was connected, that it's congruent, and that it really, you know, get everything marching in the same direction. So that's where I came in as a co-producer on it.
Okay, cool. I want to cover this last project too, Fatal Opera 3. And unfortunately, ironically, your other drummer, Gar Samuelson, who passed away some time ago, 99, I think it was, at the age of 41. Very sad as well. And so you've teamed up with Chris Poland on this one, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Chris and I, it's funny when, you know, Chris, when he and Gar left Megadeth, you know, Chris, both of them were very bad in the drug culture. And Chris got sober pretty much right away. I mean, he was in rough shape, and he got clean. Our agent, Andy Summers, got him a gig to go out and play bass with the Circle Jerks, you know, touring in a van, finally making money, right? When you're in a punk band touring in a van, you make money. Heavy metal bands, we spend all the money on lights and production and all the stuff, right? So he was happy, he was sober, and then you know, again, 1989, I'm making the turn into sobriety, and you know, Chris was a good friend to me. I remember going down to he and his girlfriend at the time. They lived in like Marina Del Rey. I remember going down to their house and sitting there watching Clint Eastwood's first movie, I think it was Birdland, which is the story of Charlie Parker. And super awesome. Then we learned, you know, Clint is a jazz fan. His son is a steam jazz bass player. I guess now does a lot of the musical compositions for Clint's films. And but I just remember sitting there, you know, we're watching the story of Charlie Parker, who ultimately died a heroin addict, a jazz musician, heroin addict. And it was Gar and Chris who brought that drug into Megadeth because that was their lifestyle. And look, I willingly signed up, you know, that's the thing. In a clear mind back in Minnesota, I probably wouldn't have, but you know, you're in Hollywood, you're already a little buzzed on other stuff. And, you know, a plate of white, a plate of brown, a little green, whatever.
When in Rome, you know? I guess.
That is it. That is. Yeah, when you're with Caligula or whatever it is. You know?
Exactly.
Babylon, you know. It was. That's what it was in 1983, 84. You know. So no, but those guys. You know, they were the older guys too. They were a little bit older. So you know, the two of them came, you know, Gar joined and then Chris was brought in, and they had grown up together in Dunkirk, New York, which is kind of by Buffalo. And so they grew up together. They'd been in a group called the New Yorkers, who were, you know, kind of like a fusion rock group. Didn't get signed. You know, I think we're doing the numbers, but just for whatever reason, the industry wanted Motley Crue and Rat and not, you know, jazz fusion, you know. I mean, so they sort of got passed over and life moved on. And so to have them in Megadeth was an interesting turn, because the Megadeth music was certainly getting very progressive. It was very detailed, you know, beyond what even Metallica was doing, Anthrax, Slayer, you know, it's called the Big Four for now. But, you know, so we had our, you know, our sound started to really develop, and having those guys there, you know, who could play anything, but also add their own, you know, pizzazz to it, you know, really was cool. So, but yeah, just the lifestyle of it was not meant, there's no way it could last. So we had to make the change. And, you know, Gar, I never did see Gar again after Dave and I went up to Gar's house in Pasadena, where he and his girlfriend Gail lived. And I remember we did kind of one last, you know, party session, you know, with Gar, just kind of the like, dude, it sucks to have to break this news to you, but we got to do it. You know, me and Dave came together, delivered the news, and then, you know, we left, and it was shitty, you know, and but I never did see him again until we did, after the Clash of the Titans tour in 1991, we did a little 10-day run of dates called Oxidation of the Nations tour that we did. And it started in Jacksonville, Florida, and we worked our way across the southern part of the USA to get back home to LA, kind of a pay the bills to get home tour. Gar came to the show in Jacksonville, because that's where I think where Fatal Opera was based. That's where he was living at the time. So saw him briefly. He had longer hair at that time. That was the last time I saw him, you know. So Chris had given me a little more insight about, you know, kind of some of the details of, you know, when he got sick and passed away and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this was just a moment to, you know, again, to honor Gar, as the press release said, you know, the singer Andy Freeman, a fantastic singer, great musician, a great artist in his own right. You know, he discovered these demos, and he decided to polish them up and finish them. Some of them were damaged and he couldn't restore them, but he got 12 cuts out of it. And that's when Chris and I were asked to come in and perform on it, which I thought was a great idea. And it was cool, man. I mean, it's fun sitting in the studio playing to a Gar track, because it was kind of loose. It wasn't to a click, you know, so the tempos kind of push and pull as they do with Gar. But I thought he played really well on it. You know, his performance was good, even though it was just a demo. And I thought we polished it up pretty good, mixed it well, and you know, so I thought it was it was fun to just kind of make a song with Gar again.
Yeah, very good. And that's out on Combat, right? They put that out. Okay, very good. I know you got a lot going on. I just want to give you an opportunity. Do you have any other projects, things you're working on that you want to talk about quick?
I always have other stuff.
I was going to say, you're the busiest guy in the business. I see something popping up like, wow.
It's like whack-a-mole. Where the hell is he today?
Yeah.
We thought we beat him down into a hole. Oh, shit, now he's back up over here, you know? You know, and all this stuff, I just, honestly, I do it all for fun. I mean, all of it, every single bit of it, you know? Megadeth, all that, you know? It's like, I don't know, let's go to Hollywood, see what's going on out there. Hey, all right, starting a band, cool, you know?
Yep. Cool.
And enter my mom in her comment, you know? But it is, and that's what all this stuff is, you know. Hey, you want to be in the part of the film? Sure, you know. Hey, you want to play the track with Gar? Sure, you know. So, you know, I figure, you know, it's all just a free ride, and you know, the gift of music is fun. It's more fun when you're doing it with your pals, and get in the room and fire it up and have some fun.
Very good. Well, we'll watch out for all these projects. I can't wait, you know, for the Lucid, and maybe see you live too. That'll be very exciting.
Yes. Yeah. We're trying to get actually, I just heard there might be some other stuff, some more Midwest stuff. I don't know, but yeah, you know, so I go to the car wash and the guy's like, dude, when's the Lucid playing around? You know about the Lucid? Wow. All right. I guess the word is out, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's good stuff.
Yeah. So, very good. Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much for taking some time, man. I appreciate it. It's always great to see a fellow Midwesterner doing
Yeah.
well. And
Thanks for holding down the fort up there.
oh yeah,
Appreciate it.
oh yeah, and anyway, thank you so much. We'll push anything you got coming up. God bless.
Cool.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye,
See ya.
David.
Bye.